I'm Jeff Koinange. It is Saturday, the 18th of February, 2017. Good morning. Welcome to Thisday Live. And here are some of the stories making headlines around the world. Boko Haram launches its most brazen attack yet this year in northern Nigeria. 8 suicide bombers, scores are reported dead. Newly elected Gambian President Adama Barrow is due to be inaugurated in the capital Banjul as only the country's third president since independence 52 years ago. And with poaching at critical levels in parts of Africa, a census of elephants is now being conducted in Kenya to determine just how many are left. We begin our broadcast in northern Nigeria, where the militant group Boko Haram has unleashed a wave of suicide bombers, 8 of them, killing scores and injuring dozens. It happened Thursday night in the town of Maiduguri, where reports say heavily armed Boko Haram fighters, some on motorcycles, tried to take over the town. They were repelled by the Nigerian military, but 8 of them blew themselves up. Late in December, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari announced that the government had defeated Boko Haram, but experts say this latest incident in a town of more than 2 million people shows this is far from accurate. Joining me now to discuss the Boko Haram menace, as always, Arise News editorial director Nick Jennings. Nick, this latest, 8 suicide bombers in Maiduguri, which is supposed to have been secure. I mean, this is serious stuff.
It's very serious, Jeff. I mean, we're not entirely sure how many suicide bombers. There's differing reports of whether there were 8 or 6 of them. But what they do know, what the military authorities are saying, is that 6 of them were women, female suicide bombers of a young age. And this is one of the most disturbing developments of this whole Boko Haram insurgency in the north, how increasingly now they're relying on young children, male and female, and a lot of female teenagers being used as suicide bombers. And this is right in the heart of Maiduguri, where it's under strong military presence there, and it seemingly was under control. The government said that they had eradicated Boko Haram as a major military threat, and here they are seemingly able to operate with impunity right in the middle of Maiduguri and operating from one of the main IDP camps.
Yeah, the other thing when we were speaking to experts throughout the week, Nick, is they say the prototype of the new suicide bomber, female and much younger. And
also we had the UNICEF chief spokesman, and she said many of these young suicide bombers aren't acting of their own free will. They don't really know that what their cause is, and they've been motivated for the wrong reasons.
Dangerous precedent this is setting?
Well, it is a very dangerous precedent. Also, what's important is that you've got a major humanitarian issue going up in that whole region. Not only have you got 20,000 people killed in the last 8 years of warfare up there, but there's 2.8 million people who have been made homeless. And the main international relief agencies working closely with the Nigerian government are struggling to contain this as a major humanitarian disaster. We've had the World Food Programme saying that they expect up to 450,000 children to suffer from serious malnutrition this year if it's not sorted out. Interestingly enough, and coincidentally, there's a major conference in Norway opening next week. A major donors meeting, and they're trying to attract more funding to fight Boko Haram in the aftermath of Boko Haram in Nigeria, Niger and Chad. They're looking for $1 billion this year to try and sort it out. Otherwise, they say the problem's only going to get worse. But when you've got attacks like this, which affect how the relief agencies are able to operate safely within that region, it's not going to encourage donors to come forward and put more money into the place.
Absolutely, and contrary to what President Muhammadu Buhari said in December, that Boko Haram had been eradicated or defeated, it's clearly not the case here, Nick.
Well, this is one of his key campaign pledges. Remember when he was elected 2 years ago? One was to sort out the economy, another one to stop corruption, and the third one was to solve the Boko Haram insurgency in the north. Now, the military is saying that by and large they have got them on the run. They've defeated a lot of their main bases, particularly in the Zambezi forest, but you can never stop the sort of scourge of suicide bombers. It's very difficult.
Terrible situation, Nick. Thanks so much, as always, Nick. Arise News editorial director there, Nick Jennings. Now, to the Gambia, where the country's newly elected president, Adama Barrow, is due to be inaugurated in the capital, Banjul. Now, Barrow was sworn in last month at a ceremony in the Gambian embassy in neighboring Senegal. This after the country's long-serving leader, Yahya Jammeh, had refused to step down despite being defeated. But under pressure from regional leaders, Jammeh finally relented and Barrow was able to return. Now, he becomes only the third president in Gambia's 52-year history. Further afield, and Malaysian police have arrested a fourth person in connection with the murder of the half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. He's been identified as a 46-year-old North Korean citizen who was using Malaysian identity documents, and he becomes the first North Korean to be arrested in connection with the murder. As the investigation gathers pace, Kim Jong-nam's body remains in the morgue, where further toxicology reports could take up to 2 weeks. The Malaysian government is refusing to release the body because the North Koreans are not accepting the post-mortem carried out by Malaysian authorities. They have also refused to present vital DNA samples, which would formally identify the body. Kim Jong-nam was attacked at Kuala Lumpur International Airport on Monday. 2 women allegedly sprayed toxic liquid in his face, and he died while receiving medical attention. To China now, and China has called for a resumption of all international talks to discuss North Korea's nuclear missile tests, which are causing major security concerns around the world. Speaking at the G20 summit in Germany, Chinese Foreign Minister said that the current cycle of nuclear missile tests followed by sanctions was negative and must end. He also stressed that UN Security Council resolutions, including sanctions against Pyongyang, should be fully implemented, but another way, namely through dialogue, must be the path to a lasting peaceful solution. To Pakistan now, and dozens of militants have been killed in a security crackdown following Thursday's attack on a shrine that left up to 100 people dead. A suicide bomber blew himself up among devotees at the Sufi shrine in the town of Sehwan. Pakistan has reacted with raids across the country. It has fired rockets into Afghanistan, which it accuses of harboring militants. Border crossings with the country have also been closed. Islamic State has said it carried out the attack. It was the latest in a string of bombings by the jihadist group. The shrine attack was the most deadly in a series of militant attacks that have killed hundreds of people across Pakistan, including civilians, police, and soldiers. A Pakistani defense analyst has commented on the way the shrine was targeted. Let's take a listen.
There are 2 reasons. One is ideological, because these militant groups are very, very fundamentalist, to the point that they think that these shrines, the way that people go and respect these, Sufis, they think that it is against Islam. So there is a sort of an ideological stance to it. But I think they also think that it will attract much greater attention. It's a soft target. As you can see that they have been continuously attacking the soft targets wherever they find crowds. And in places like these shrines, there are large crowds.
We're going to take the first break of the hour now, but do stay with us. Plenty more ahead. All the days of the headlines, business, sports, all coming up. Here's a gentle reminder. You're watching Arise News Now, live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. And this is Thisday Live. We are back in a moment.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.
There is nothing as symbolic as a door. It shuts to protect you and opens to give you much more. Everyone wants to succeed, not just count pennies. When life gets tough, I remember a few things. Difficulty and struggles are part of what life brings. Your strength comes from the support around you. A true friend believes in what you do, there to hold your hand through any weather. I found my partner, and we walked through doors together.
Diamond, your bank.
You're with the Rise News in Abuja, Nigeria, and you're watching This Day Live with me, Jeff Koinange. Now, the U.S. Senate has confirmed Scott Pruitt as the new head of the U.S.'s Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. Pruitt was Donald Trump's main choice for the role and one of the most contentious of his cabinet nominees. Now, Pruitt is said to be skeptical of global warming and favors fossil fuels over alternate energy sources. He was confirmed largely along party lines, 52 to 46. A clear rift for the White House 2 days after Trump's nominee for Labor Secretary withdrew his nomination amid business and personal controversy.
Are there any senators in the chamber wishing to vote or wishing to change their vote? If not, the ayes are 52, the nays are 46. The nomination is confirmed.
At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump is spending the weekend at his luxury Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida and is expected to address a rally of supporters later today. After a tough and tumultuous first month in office, he's expected to reinforce one of his key campaign mantras, creating jobs, putting America first. This was his key message during a visit to a Boeing factory on Friday.
We're seeing companies open up factories in America. We're seeing them keep jobs at home. Ford, General Motors, Fiat Chrysler, just to name a very, very few. So many more already. They're keeping and bringing thousands of jobs back in our country because the business climate they know has already changed. No task too large, no dream too great, no goal beyond our reach. Just like you built this incredible airplane behind me, both of them, when you think about it, we are going to rebuild this country and ensure that every forgotten community has the bright future it deserves. And by the way, those communities are forgotten no longer. The election took care of that.
Now, at the same time, details of a controversial plan to use 100,000 troops to round up and deport illegal immigrants has been dismissed as false by a White House spokesman. An 11-page memo detailing the plan was obtained by the Associated Press news agency, but the White House says the plan did not originate with President Trump. In one of the biggest demonstrations to date, thousands of Mexicans have been forming human chains to protest at plans to build a wall along the border with the United States. Protesters hurled slogans at Trump, whose plans to build the wall to keep undocumented immigrants out of the U.S. and make Mexico foot the bill has enraged many people. Last week, U.S. immigration agents arrested some 680 people across the United States as part of a crackdown by the new administration on the estimated 11 million illegal immigrants living in the United States. Meanwhile, officials in Ceuta, the Spanish enclave on the North African coast, are struggling to deal with as many as 500 migrants, mainly African, who stormed over the fence from Morocco yesterday. In one of the biggest mass stormings, more than 700 people are reported to have tried to clamber over the 20-foot-high fence that separates the European Union from Africa and makes it such a strategic target for would-be asylum seekers. Those who made it were clearly jubilant to have crossed into Europe. Emergency services said on Twitter